Hi everyone, welcome back. Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay Marshall. I'm the room captain for today's session, and I'm delighted to be joined by two of my colleagues from SAS. We're welcomed by Lee Cullen and Brett Wujek, who work in our product strategy team. And today the team are going to share with you, as you can see on the screen, our GenAI product strategy. So let's give them a warm welcome.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you all for coming. Here we are, day 2 of the conference, in fact, second half of day 2. So by now, you've seen and heard a lot about some of the things we're doing around generative AI. So if nothing else, consider this a recap, an encapsulation of all of this, and we'll be discussing other aspects of it beyond just product capabilities and features as well. For any of you who have been focused on other things, consider this a crash course. We are going to be flying through a lot of material here in terms of everything we're doing around generative AI. And we put on display last year our product strategy around this. And this has not changed. Our strategy has not changed. We've just been moving forward and executing on it. And it's still really centered around these 4 pillars. The first 2 associated with everything around Copilot capability. And again, we've been talking a lot about Copilots and things we're doing with Copilots. And that's all about ensuring that we build in some intelligent assistance and guidance within our own products to help our customers use our tools more effectively, both in our platform and in our solutions. Then there's this third pillar is around tools and capabilities that we provide that help you use large language models within GenAI-based applications that you're developing more effectively. And then the fourth is around other types of generative types of services, specifically what we're doing in synthetic data generation. So we're going to touch on all of these today, including and more. So let's start with Copilot. And again, we've talked a lot about this. And the first category of Copilot that I really want to cover here is that at the platform level. And when we talk about the platform, the Viya platform, we're talking about that end-to-end environment that takes you from questions and data to decisions and everything in between, from the data management and the development phase into the deployment and operational phase of it. And if you think about it throughout that whole AI lifecycle, a lot of different personas come into play, as listed here, and a lot of different tasks or objectives that they're trying to achieve come into play. So everything from data management by data engineers and ETL engineers trying to process and prepare data up front, business analysts exploring and visualizing data, data scientists trying to use that to develop models and other AI-based applications on this, and then downstream and everything all the way through to lineage, being able to track how you got to those decisions. So with Viya being a whole end-to-end platform covering this whole analytics lifecycle, you can imagine how it just makes sense that we're going to build in Copilot capabilities across all of these applications. And the goal here really being about making you, our users, a lot more productive, doing things in a more efficient and optimal manner. And doing so not just by giving you guidance and maybe explaining some things to you, but also executing some tasks for you, some of those tedious things that take time. Always ensuring, though, that there is some level of human oversight and human guidance over that. We're not just automating everything for you. We're automating where it makes sense and letting you still be in control. And so if we look across the analytics lifecycle, again, all sorts of capabilities across here, a bit of a repeat, but I wanted to use that slide because the animation is so cool. And the just things from generating code, generating flows, building out pipelines, generating dashboards, all of these types of capabilities we are working on and have been working on to build into our Copilot. Now, I want to make it clear up front here that when I talk about the SAS Viya Copilot, this is a feature of Viya 4, this is not a new product that you have to buy. So it is a service that SAS stands up and that the Viya platform applications make calls to and make use of based on user prompts and what the user is trying to do within our applications. And we're continuing to build that out, again, across the various applications in the Viya platform. Also, just want to make it clear that this is specifically for Viya 4. So as I mentioned, it's not just about summarizing and explaining things to you. It's really about helping you get the job done and in a lot of ways doing tasks for you, executing things for you. So you're going to see this type of interface here pop up all throughout our applications. You've seen some on display already with Model Studio, and I'll touch on that in a second. But it's really about, again, asking you, what do you need to do? How can we help you be more effective? And so I kind of want to plant that seed in your head and not just kind of digest what we're pushing to here in terms of the capabilities here, but start thinking about it on, in terms of your own job and your day-to-day work and what are the types of things that will make you more productive and more effective. And we're really wanting to get that feedback from you to help drive our development. So let's start with, again, one of the initial capabilities that we're putting out there, which is about helping you with code. And here I specifically call out code assistance because it is more than just generating code. There's capabilities to explain existing code and comment code. And the initial rollout of this, again, this is provided as a service that we're running and operating from a client perspective and being able to access it. Our initial deployment is through a Viya Copilot extension in VS Code, Visual Studio Code. So just a quick video here. Again, you may have seen some of this on display already, but as you can imagine, you're embedded within your coding environment here and just you provide some description or some instructions of what you want to do in comments and say generate the code for it. And it may give you back multiple options for you to choose from, but again, that human oversight of always being able to select which option it is and actually accepting it. You can have all sorts of code and just say, a whole block of code to say, I want to explain what this code does. So it will go off, call the large language model, and give you back a natural language explanation of that. That's really important for things like code maintenance and transferring maintenance among different owners within an organization. So they don't have to sit down and kind of explain the code. The Copilot will do that for you. And then adding comments to code, which most people don't like to do. You just like to code and move on. But it's important for long-term maintenance, again, to be able to add comments to your code. So Copilot will help you do that. The other focus area initially that we've been working on is in assisting you in developing model pipelines. And for those of you who are familiar with it, what we're talking about here is our Model Studio application in Viya that helps you build modeling pipelines with all sorts of data preparation capabilities, modeling capabilities, other post-processing features. There's a lot of different nodes, a lot of different techniques, a lot of different options for all of those. And it can be a bit overwhelming to try to understand what you need to do. You know your data and you know your objective or something that you're trying to predict in a model you're trying to develop. Building an effective pipeline for that can be very difficult. Not to mention the fact that the results that come out of these nodes in the pipeline overall can be pretty complex. They're very informative, but can be pretty complex and helping users interpret what those results mean is really important. So that's really the overall goal of the Copilot that we have built into Model Studio. And so just a very quick demonstration of that here. Again, we've had this on display, but starting with a pipeline, I may not know exactly what to do. I may want it to recommend the next node to me. It will give some recommendations and some descriptions of why each node might be important. If I want it to maybe kind of explore other alternatives, I can just say, well, go ahead and explore. Try all sorts of other options here. And it will go, and as you can see here, iterate through many, many types of permutations of models to add, nodes to add. It could be other pre-processing nodes. Just a glimpse of it there. We can give you a full demonstration of that back at the booth. And it's been on display in other presentations. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Lee. You want to tell them a little bit more about, from the solution standpoint, these specialized copilots?
Yes. So we're going to share with you now what Brett was just talking about. How are we integrating SAS Viya Copilot into our Viya 4 applications, right? So now we're discussing our industry offerings. So SAS covers a breadth of industries, right? So SAS works in risk, fraud, and compliance. So I know we've got a lot of banking customers here, in health and life sciences, as well as in the public sector, government, and law enforcement. SAS works in the field of marketing and customer intelligence, as well as in IoT. And so why is this important? Why is it injecting SAS Viya Copilot into our industry offerings? How does that help our customers? Well, we've heard you, we've taken your feedback into consideration as we're thinking through these. You're telling us, well, you have very manual, repetitive processes that are specific to your domains. And in some cases, I've heard customers say that these are very repetitive tasks. You know, they get in the way of higher priorities or innovation work that you would like to be doing, and in some cases can result in multi-millions of cost loss for organizations. And so this is where SAS is looking at these workflows, right? And so customers may say, I would like to automate some of these steps. And so what I'm showing here are some of the areas that SAS is working on in the space of generative AI. So we're looking to help credit risk business analysts in the bank stress testing process, which is a very manual process. We're looking to help physicians and clinical quality analysts in the translation of natural language into SQL so that they can self-serve the data without having to become SQL experts themselves. We're also working to help manufacturing plant floor workers who in real time are on the floor trying to optimize the ingredients of their products based on a drought that is just now occurring. And then we're looking across a lot of investigative roles, right? So anti-money laundering, of course, police officers who have often very manual processes when conducting witness statement investigations, and of course, fraud investigators. And so what we're going to show you here is we're going to go into 2 demos. So SAS this year in 2025 is our target is to become generally available with some SAS Viya Copilot features in 2 of our industry offerings, one in health and life sciences and one in risk. So we're going to start with health and life sciences, and I do want to say, I see Michelle in the audience. Michelle, would you raise your hand? She is our product manager for this. So if you have questions, please find Michelle. So let's dive into this. So SAS today has an offering called SAS Health. And let me give an example of what the value proposition here is for SAS Health. I'm going to use hospitals as an example. Hospitals often have many terabytes of data, right? And it can be very segmented and fragmented. And it's near impossible to self-serve on that data. And so what SAS Health is doing is it's unifying that data under a common data model that is FHIR compliant to help customers self-serve on that data. And so SAS Viya Copilot is being integrated into SAS Health to help customers who may not know SQL, right? And they don't have time to learn SQL or become SQL power users, but they need to query this data. They need to self-serve the data. And usually what happens today is, maybe they have to talk to their analytical teams to do this for them, and some of the queries get lost in translation. So we want to bring the ability to just access the data and to perform these queries for any user who needs to do so. So SAS Viya Copilot here is going to enable the translation of natural language into SQL so that a customer can perform ad hoc data queries or build patient registries kind of in real time in a matter of minutes. And so what I'm showing here, these are some ad hoc data queries, right? Maybe I need to generate a list of patients with chronic kidney disease. And what does the Copilot do here? So this is the view that the Copilot would present to the user. So it would show that very user-friendly data view, right? But if the user wants to drill into the SQL, or maybe you need to save that SQL for audit, right? Maybe you have internal audit and you just need to maintain a log of that SQL, you can still do so. So what I'm going to show you now is 2 demos. The first is a user who is performing ad hoc data queries on the data. So here I am in SAS Health, and I hop into the Enrich menu to access SAS Viya Copilot, and I'm prompted with a reminder that I'm going to be accessing sensitive patient data. And what I want to do is hop over to my prompt history, right? So I already have a library of prompts that I know work really well for what I need to do. So this is a productivity gain. And so I'm asking Copilot to help me build a patient registry of patients with asthma. Now here I just want to use some out-of-the-box prompts that SAS provides that I can go and customize should I need to do so. All right, there's my data view. And I'm able to access the SQL here. And can copy that SQL and save it should I need to do so. And now SAS also provides other out-of-the-box prompts, starter prompts, to help get me started, or I can create my own prompt and save it into a prompt library. And here I just want to look at my data and fix some issues in it. So right here I'm identifying duplicate records. Okay. So now with that, I'm going to go on to the next demo. And this one is showing how a user can quickly, in a matter of minutes. Yes, I see a hand. Yeah.
For the purpose analysis they show, do you have to tell Copilot what data they need to use? And how do they know, if you have a lot of data,
Right.
you know even which table, and then they can give you a filter results?
So are you asking if you want to query for a specific table to access the data, or is that the question? Or?
Suppose you have 100 tables.
Uh-huh.
How, does the Copilot automatically search all the tables and then give the information you want, or you have to tell the Copilot, say, maybe it's in 3 of the tables and the table name?
So I know Michelle's here, but there is a common data model under the hood of SAS Health. I don't know if we have a mic for Michelle, but that's probably a great question for Michelle to answer.
So yeah, SAS Health is built on top of a common data model. So we've taken the FHIR resources and kind of flattened them to make about 35 tables. And what Copilot will do is it will go out and it will query all of those tables. Now, you can also say, look for something and say, if it's an observation, please look in the observation table for X, Y, Z. So you can do it in both ways.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so let's hop into building a patient registry. So what is a patient registry? So this is a list of patients who have common demographics, common medical issues, and common patient outcomes. And so what this is showing is that I want to build a patient registry of patients who have diabetes and hypertension. And so now I'm beginning to build this patient registry, and I'm going to want to append more information to this registry about each patient. And so what this is showing is I've added some more information around birth date, phone number, and now I want to add information about most recent medical visit. And what this is doing is looking across many tables, right? I think in this specific demo, the Copilot's working across 7 different tables and building a list of over 4,000 patients. And I'm able to do this in a matter of minutes, right? I don't have to figure out which SQL queries to craft, but I can always go back and look at the SQL should I need to do so. And so this is really enabling the self-serving on data, no matter what your role is, right, in the medical profession, if you need to do this very quickly. So again, this is showing I'm continuing to add more information about each patient here. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to risk. So this is another area of focus that SAS is tackling. Again, something that we plan to become generally available with this year. So SAS has a product in market now called SAS Asset and Liability Management. And what that does is it helps banks stay regulatorily compliant, right? They have to show that they are maintaining a strong risk adversity as well as liquidity. And the SAS Viya Copilot, what it's enabling, the personas that it's enabling are credit risk business analysts who have to perform bank stress testing, as well as the model developers who help with that process. And this can be a very tedious process. And so how SAS Viya Copilot tags in is it helps set up these asset liability and management analysis runs. It helps configure the parameters. And what the team is working on, it's not just text entry by typing it in, but they're working on voice-to-text translation. And then the Copilot can look out into the market, current market sentiment, and look at to see if interest rates are volatile, and it could suggest shocks and risks to apply to that analysis run. And then it takes it a step further and generates a summary, right? And it can compare past analysis runs to current ones to determine what enables the best bank balance sheet given the current market sentiment, and then recommends risk mitigations to the bank. And so this is an example of a type of query that I could enter into SAS Viya Copilot for this, is to suggest US-related risk factors. What is the current market sentiment, and how is this going to affect the bank's balance sheet? And so here the Copilot can give very detailed information about this, and has looked out into the market and is saying, oh, it's seeing that yield curves are flattening, which is an indicator of risk. And this is also showing a comparison of analysis runs. So this is past runs to current runs. And the AI run here in this case compared to the IRRBB run is showing that the balance sheet with the scenarios that have just been applied is a better balance, will result in a better balance sheet and better liquidity for the bank. So now let me take you through a demo.
Let's start by clicking on the Copilot logo in the top right of our screen. Here, we can ask Copilot to describe how it can help with ALM. The Copilot will then walk you through the two major features available as of right now. First, you can identify and search cirrus objects. Here, Copilot can help you initiate a search, identify relevant objects, and provide results based on your criteria. The second major feature available is to allow analysts to configure, execute, summarize, or compare ALM scenario analyses, where Copilot can guide you to set up and run your analyses, including applying risk factors or shocks. Additionally, Copilot can help summarize results or compare different scenarios for better insights. Now that we've done that, let's first identify the analysis runs that we already have in the system and select the one that we would like to modify with Copilot. So we'll search cirrus objects by asking Copilot to find all analysis runs where SSC is ALM and run status is completed. Now that we can see all of the recent analysis runs, let's select IRRBB template as our base run. Now let's modify some of the scenario set and the risk factors. So we'll tell Copilot that we want to configure an analysis run and to show me all of the default values and additional options. Copilot now shows us the options for market date, portfolio, reports, and scenario sets. Let's go ahead and keep the defaults, but update the IRRBB scenario set. We'll ask Copilot to show all the risk factors that are US related. Then we can ask Copilot to suggest US related risk factors to consider. We can ask it, based on current market sentiment, to recommend interest rate shock scenarios like parallel shift, steepening, inversion, etc. For ALM modeling to assess EVE and NII impact. We can also ask it to include suggested shock values in BPS and to give an update on the current market environment. Now, armed with that information, let's go ahead and create an analysis run. Then, we can ask Copilot to create a comprehensive report comparing the recent IRRBB with our newly created AI run from Copilot, and ask Copilot to think like a financial analyst. And here are the results of that comprehensive report. Thank you for watching. We hope you have a great rest of your day.
So with that, as Brett said earlier, he planted the seed. What are those workflows that are painful or time-consuming, or that you just want to tag an assistant to help you, to free up your time to work on higher priorities? So that's what we would love to hear at the SAS Viya Copilot booth, or you can find us too through your account executives, and please give us that feedback. With that, we are planning to private preview this year some of these early features to test with our customers, because customer feedback is gold. So if you are interested in private previewing, please come find Brett and I, and we'd love to talk more with you about that. Okay, so with that, Brett, I'm going to hand it over to you for a SAS Viya Copilot frequently asked questions.
Yeah, we just wanted to kind of cover some things that we hear quite frequently from people, just to kind of make sure we level set and that you have all the facts. And so when we talk about Copilot, as I already mentioned, it will just be a new feature in Viya 4, so for Viya 4 customers, available at no cost. And when you upgrade your Viya 4 deployment, you will just start to see these new features pop in and available. So it's, again, we consider it almost table stakes these days. We need to build these capabilities in to help our users. So I mentioned that. It is an all-in or all-out. Ultimately, we may build in some capabilities to turn on and off certain features, but right now, as it stands, if you turn Copilot on or you turn it off. So you don't have to use it, but if you don't want to use it, you're turning it all off across the board and for all users. As far as access and setup goes, it's as simple as us providing you keys and the administrator and that getting configured in Environment Manager. Now it says here an admin configures that. We're actually building in some automation for that. So as a Viya 4 user, you will essentially with a click of a button access your keys, and they'll be configured within your Environment Manager. I mentioned being able to turn on and off Copilot. From a language perspective, starting with English only in terms of the actual interaction with the Copilot, the English language, but we do want to support it in non-English browser locales as well, meaning it will show up there, but as far as the interaction and the responses you get, initially it will be in English. Okay, I've kind of covered those. For the compatibility for private preview, we are offering this initially on hosted customers, because that's going to require that we upgrade your deployment with these new capabilities on the client side within the Viya applications. But for our general availability release later in Q3, you can be a hosted customer, you can be a customer on your own cloud or even on-prem. The one thing that's required here is just access to the internet, because this is a service that we're running in our Azure subscription that gets called from your Viya deployment. And I just kind of wanted to emphasize how this has been developed in close partnership with Microsoft, and this has been really important to us because they have a lot of maturity and a lot of services that we're able to take advantage of right out of the box to build out our framework that's supporting all of our Copilot capability. And so this has been, allowed us to really accelerate that, and we're continuing to lean into that. And this, when I speak of this GenAI framework, it's really all about, yes, standard basic GenAI functionality, but also the whole orchestration and operationalization of this, and from a LLM ops perspective, providing it as a service and doing so in a very trustworthy and secure way. And again, that's all part of being built on this solid foundation of services that we can take advantage of through Azure. And if we take just a quick look at what a very high level architecture perspective here, on the left you've got Viya, you've got the various applications in Viya, including, again, we've shown you initially Model Studio, but SAS Studio, other SAS applications within there, being able to call through into our Azure subscription where these Copilot implementations are deployed and taking advantage of Microsoft AI services on the back end. Lee, do you want to kind of cover this one real quick in terms of like everything we're doing with Microsoft? Because
So we've got another question. Yeah.
On the previous slide, you are showing the SAS Studio that if I use EG as my editor, can I use any of the Copilot features, or we have to use the SAS Studio as editor?
did you say EG?
Yes.
Yeah, currently this is not in EG. And again, when you talk about those types of applications like EG, SAS Studio, there's the coding aspect, right? And there's all of the nice conveniences that come within that UI as an IDE itself. So even on the coding aspect side right now, our code assistant Copilot is only offered through VS Code initially, but we're following that up next with SAS Studio. But EG is in line for that as well, so we're not, but currently, over the next few months, that capability is not available in EG.
Okay, thank you.
I can touch on this one if you want.
Oh, it looks like we had
is there another question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As you said, today the Copilot is in an external connection to run the LLMs. The SAS plans to add or embed its own LLMs inside the product, like say SAS Studio or the other things. And in that aspect that these Copilots is going to an external source, how the data protection aspects of that, because usually the clients have like data that can't go out, and sometimes their environments are air-gapped. So what that aspect?
Yes, so that's a frequently asked question from many customers. So that's one of the many reasons we're partnered with Microsoft, is because they have out-of-the-box security and guardrails around this. So the data in that cloud service that we showed you, that big gray box, SAS Viya Copilot service, we are not storing your data, right? Like if there's data in transit, the actual execution occurs in your Viya instance, right? So whether you're on-prem, right, OpenShift with the connection to the cloud, or whether you are SaaS hosted managed, it's happening, the execution is in your environment. And we are working with Microsoft to put more information out for our customers about this, because we're getting asked, well, how does my data move? Could you explain that to me? So more to come on that. We understand that's critical and top of mind. Okay, and quickly just to cover, so SAS, with SAS Viya Copilot, we're planning to integrate, we have some other generative AI type products like Data Maker, so that's long term, but we want to inject that into Viya Workbench. You all have probably heard a bit about that. But what this is showing more generally is the broader partnership with Microsoft, right? Where SAS is covering a lot of ground in our Microsoft partnership, more than just the generative AI space. Trustworthy and secure by design. So let's talk about that, since we were just discussing that subject. So there are principles out there, right? That SAS and Microsoft share common trustworthy principles, but it goes further than that. We're building functionality into both the infrastructure that we were just talking about, into our features as well. And so we plan to launch that roadmap and share that roadmap, not just put feature information, but what are we doing with functionality to help our customers meet their trustworthy and security goals, especially because regulation, right, is evolving in the generative AI space. So what I'm showing you is some of the functionality that we are building in now. So Azure offers out-of-the-box guardrails to prevent harmful inputs that are flowing into the system, and to gate check the LLM before the response or completion ever arrives back to the customer. So here, some of these out-of-the-box guardrails that we're working with are things like hate prevention or copyright infringement prevention, as well as prompt injection attack mitigation. We have heard our customers loud and clear on this as well. You want human in the loop. You want high human agency, and you don't want the AI to go off and automate and execute on your behalf. So how we're handling that is we're looking at every single business case that we're working on and building into those business cases those places where the Copilot will recommend something to you, but then you keep your hands on the steering wheel and you verify the output before the Copilot goes off and executes. In addition, SAS is working on customization as well. We talked about our clinical data discovery feature in SAS Health. The team is working on emergent technology around meta-prompting as well and other SQL injection attack mitigations. And we're learning just cutting-edge technology as it's coming out on market and how best to do this. So we're doing not just A/B testing, but we're forming red teaming best practices and a whole lot more. So again, I would love to hear, what do you need to be successful in your organization to use generative AI? Because we want that feedback so that we're building it into our infrastructure and our features. Frequently asked questions, customers will say, well, is our data going to be used to train the LLMs? No, absolutely not. Can customers select which LLMs are integrated with the service? No, not at this time, and that's very intentional because in each of our applications and each of the Copilot features that we're building, we are testing the LLMs, right? And we are looking to find the best LLM to give the highest quality of output, and we're also doing security testing around each LLM. And can customers use that infrastructure that we just showed to build your own large language model application stack? We're saying no, not at this time. But Viya 4 today does offer both tools and external APIs to help customers build your own large language application stack, which is what Brett is going to talk about now.
Yeah, let's touch on that a little bit. When we talk about an application stack, app stack, what are we really referring to here? And it's really the core concept of this third pillar of our strategy here, which, as Lee said, is all about the fact that when you build LLM-based applications or applications that incorporate calls to large language models in some way, there are a lot of other tools and things that you need to support that. And very often it's more than just a call to a large language model. There are things like RAG frameworks or retrieval augmented generation where you can provide more data, more documents that are used as part of the context that gets passed to the large language model so it can answer your question more effectively. And associated with RAG frameworks are things like vector databases and embedding models. So all of these are different tools, supporting tools needed to really effectively make use of large language models and support things like prompt engineering around all of that. And then on the back end, there's caching for efficiency. There's, of course, logging and model ops for auditability and everything around trustworthiness, as Lee described. So there's a whole ecosystem of tools and an app stack, if you will, here, and the need to orchestrate across all of these. And we definitely like to point out that while, to the point before of, yes, our initial focus is largely on ensuring that we build in generative AI-based capabilities in a Copilot sort of sense across all of our applications, we also understand that our customers want and need some flexibility to make use of this technology in their own way, in their own applications. And so we do have tools, of course, like SAS Studio, where you can use steps for calling large language models and kind of validating those calls and doing some prompt engineering, managing and refining prompts within those types of flows. We definitely like to point out the fact that, yes, this is all great new technology with large language models, but there are a lot of tried and true capabilities in traditional natural language processing techniques that we have as part of our VTA, our visual text analytics offering, things like using LIDI rules that help you refine some of that data and filter it down to be passed to the large language model for its consideration in answering your prompt so that it's a more focused response. It kind of can help reduce a lot of the hallucinations and certainly help reduce costs because every token that you pass over to the large language model costs you something. So the reduction of those tokens and ensuring that you're sending the right information to the large language model and only the information that's relevant is really beneficial. And then the third area we'd like to point out is really all about orchestration of different tasks and activities right along with large language models. And this really kind of speaks to a lot of what we've been talking about and what you're hearing about with agentic AI. Now, when we talk about agentic AI, and we've put it on display a bit this morning, so you're getting a taste of it, it's really about intelligent automation and automation in the sense of being able to run different tasks to achieve an overall objective. And as Lee pointed out earlier, we don't just like to turn everything over to the agent or to a large language model to answer. There always needs to be some level of human in the loop, some human oversight. That's SAS's perspective on this, and the ability to always provide sort of recommendations and help with that guidance, but always allow for that human oversight, allowing the human to have the ability to take back control of the steering wheel there. So when we talk about agentic AI at SAS, we do like to kind of position it in terms of an overall spectrum of agency and automation from prescription, where there's a low level of AI agency or autonomy, to a high level of autonomy on the right side here. And it really comes down to your specific use case, where what's most appropriate and what, and where that falls along this spectrum. Something like processing customer reviews and taking action for for outreach and response based on that. Probably not a really risky application, and letting an agent take over a lot of that is probably appropriate. Processing loan applications or worse yet, approvals for medical procedures, that really impacts human lives. And that's where you really need some level of oversight. So I think that's kind of, I'm stating the obvious here, but if we're not careful, we can get kind of blinded by the flashy object of AI agents and let them start to take over a bit too much. And so with SAS, we're always ensuring with a lot of that human oversight in there. And I want to come back to Copilot and just make sure that it's clear. We are not considering Copilot an agent, at least to the, anywhere on the right side of the spectrum here. It's very much on the left side. It's very much providing that guidance in the explanations, only executing tasks when the user has given permission to, and just kind of giving that sort of that overall support for that. And we've talked about how with intelligent decisioning, that gives us the ability to really orchestrate a lot of these various tasks associated with building out AI agents. So AI agents are all about getting you from a goal to executing some action, and there's a lot that happens in between there. So with intelligent decisioning, you're able to, of course, combine not only calls to large language models and some of that natural language-driven control over it, but also other tools into the process and business rules. Again, part of that design, you design the agent, you determine how much autonomy is allowed versus human oversight needed. Packaging up and deploying these as containers that can be deployed as agents in their own right, or contributing into other agents as elements and components of that, and always having that built-in governance and control with the overall lineage to know how we got to a decision that's coming from an agent. Now, just in my final minute here, just kind of want to touch on Data Maker, that fourth pillar of our strategy. These other types of generative services, make sure that people are aware of the capabilities that we're providing here, which, when you think about data, that's what feeds all of this AI development. And we take it for granted, but there's a lot of regulations, there's control over data, there's privacy issues, there's data that's incomplete, imbalanced, you need to enrich that data in some way. Collecting new data can be costly, or in some cases just infeasible. So that's where synthetic data comes into play. And with Data Maker, we'd started down this path on our own quite over a year ago, and started in discussions with Hazy, a leading vendor in this space, and acquired Hazy last November. Again, in the opening session on day one, Harry was on stage. He and his team have been fully folded into SAS and have really accelerated our development of Data Maker, not only with the technology, but the expertise that their team brings, and now part of the SAS family being a prominent vendor for this. So I'm going to skip past the video of it here, of a walkthrough, just in the interest of time. Feel free to stop by the booth and talk to us more about that if you need to see any of that. But again, we've kind of done a quick fly through of our overall strategy here, all the pillars, some other concepts and issues around all of that. And please stop by our booths for further discussion, not only the Copilot and Data Maker booth, the solutions booths with the Copilots as Lee has walked through there. And there's been a whole slew of other sessions around all of these topics, so you can catch some of those recordings online if you've missed any of them. So thank you for your attention.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've kind of ran over a little bit, and we don't actually have time for Q&A because the next session starts in 10 minutes. So I would love if you guys, and I could see some hands start to go up, and I'm really sorry, we just don't have the time with our schedule. Please do go see both Lee and Brett at the booth in the Innovation Hub. I know they'd be delighted to ask some more of your questions. So with that, let's give them a warm thank you for their time. Thank you, guys.